What is a dry fast? Now, a dry fast is simple to understand. Just like a water fast, you're abstaining from food and calories, but on top of that, you're also not consuming any liquids. If you've been programmed to believe that you'll die if you don't drink water for 3 days, or maybe this is just your first time hearing about dry fasting, it's very normal to have a hesitant reaction to the concept. But if you've ever had a piece of equipment or a phone or a computer start acting up, chances are if you called tech support, you've tried to fix the problem by turning your device off for a little bit and then turning it back on, thus restarting the system completely. A good way to think about a dry fast is doing a hard reset to your digestive system and allowing it some much needed rest and recovery. It's also claimed by many experts that you'll receive the same benefits as water fasting, but 3 times quicker and or 3 times stronger than a normal water fast, since dry fasting allows for a total reset, while water fasting still requires some level of liquids to be managed throughout your digestive tract. That pretty much means a 24-hour dry fast will reap the same benefits as a 72-hour water fast. So what are the benefits of a dry fast? Let's get into the benefits, but before we do that, do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on everything related to using fasting for insanely fast and easy fat loss and health benefits. Thanks for your support in getting this information to more people that can benefit from it. All right, so let's get into it. Starting with the most obvious, dry fasting can be a great tool to lose some unwanted body fat. The reason dry fasting is so effective isn't just because of its calorie restriction like a lot of these fitness experts will claim. It's actually much, much more interesting. What a lot of people don't know is that when we gain weight, 2 things happen to our fat cells. Number 1, the amount of our fat cells increase, and number 2, the size of those fat cells increase. The problem lies in that with traditional dieting, you can reduce the size of those fat cells, but once you've developed new fat cells, they don't just simply go away. So just to paint a simple picture, imagine you have 100 ping pong balls. These represent your fat cells. If you eat poorly for 6 to 8 months or whatever it is, those 100 ping pong balls have now turned into 120 tennis balls. Even if you restrict calories and you work out like a maniac for the next 6 months, the best case scenario is that you reduce the size of those tennis balls back into ping pong balls, but you're still left with 120 of them. This is why once you've gained weight, it can be extremely tough to keep it off permanently. It's almost like the game has been rigged against you. The beauty of dry fasting is that since your body needs to stay hydrated so badly, it will actually dive into those fat cells, extract the water that it needs to function, and thereby collapse the fat cell altogether, leaving you with less ping pong balls or, fat cells. On top of the easy weight loss, dry fasting can help you grow new brain cells by triggering the production of what's known as brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short, a compound that boosts the immune system and brain cell survival. On top of that, it can help the brain grow new white blood cells, which boosts the immune system and helps with things like memory and things of that nature. So aside from making you leaner and smarter, some additional benefits include improving your cholesterol levels, lowering blood sugar, regenerating old damaged cells into new healthy ones, which lead to skin benefits, cancer prevention, and even spiritual benefits. Now look, just like anything in life, there are 2 sides of the coin, and dry fasting can have its side effects. I'll get into the specifics about the ones I felt later on, but some of the side effects you might feel could include headaches, especially if you drink a lot of caffeine like I do, tiredness, poor focus, dehydration, or even possibly urinary or kidney problems or some sort of nutrient deficiency. Without getting into the weeds of who should and shouldn't dry fast, I'm going to keep this very simple and recommend scheduling a call with my team to see if a combination of water fasting and dry fasting could be just what the doctor ordered to hit your health and fitness and longevity goals, or if you'd be better off with another strategy. Of course, you can schedule that free consult by clicking the link in the show notes. All right, so let's get into the good stuff. How should you start a dry fast? Ideally, you'll want to take a day or 2 before diving into your dry fast and loading up on healthy food, preferably fatty meats with a lot of nutrients and vegetables, or something higher in fat, moderate in protein, and lower to no carb, while also getting in a gallon to a gallon and a half of water with plenty of electrolytes, which are going to be your sodium, potassium, and magnesium. I use a brand I find on Amazon called Ultima, but really anything should do as long as it meets that criteria. After setting yourself up for success with your diet and hydration, I recommend starting your fast around 4 p.m. or so you can only have the rest of that evening to abstain, and you can break nice and early when you get home from work or whatever it is, the next day if you're doing a 24-hour dry fast, or in the coming days if you're going longer. All right, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let me share with you my experience of carrying out my first 72-hour dry fast. Day one. So I started my dry fast at 5 p.m. on Sunday night and weighed in at 203 pounds. Granted, I had just eaten a big meal, so I was holding some extra weight, not purposely, but that's just the way it worked out. Unlike my recommendation on how to start a fast optimally, I finished my eating window with a big plate of spaghetti and some garlic bread. So definitely not ideal, but we powered through. So on that first morning of waking up, I was feeling pretty normal. I would say the biggest differences between Monday morning and my typical mornings were that I slept in a few extra hours and I skipped my usual 2 to 3 cups of coffee. The reason I slept in until 7:30 instead of waking up at 4 a.m. like I normally do was for a couple reasons. First of all, I knew dry fasting could be draining, and I wanted to sleep away as much of that 72-hour timer as I possibly could. And secondly, I decided not to go to the gym during my dry fast because the last time I did a 36-hour dry fast, I ran 5 miles and trained legs really hard that day. And I ended up feeling so miserable that I ended up taking like a 2-hour nap in the fetal position on my office floor. True story, and definitely not something that I wanted to repeat. Quick side note, because I know you're probably wondering, yes, you can work out during a dry fast, but I would say limit it to walking, or at the very most doing a 5 to 10 minute session of easy body weight type movements. You definitely don't want to overdo it since your body is already in a big stressful period. Okay, so back to day one. It might be TMI, but some people will inevitably ask in the comments anyway. So I did poop on that first morning, and then I didn't have to poop again for the entirety of my fast, again, because my entire digestive system was pretty much shut down at that point. What's crazy is I did still pee every 5 to 6 hours or so for the entirety of my fast, which is pretty mind-blowing because I wasn't drinking anything for multiple days. But this is just the water being expelled from the fat cells. So having to pee is always a great feeling and reminder that the process is actually working. All right, moving on. Around 1 p.m., I started to get a mild headache, and I felt really pretty just kind of blah. Like I had all these tasks I had to complete because we were coming back from the holidays, and I had work to do for clients and a bunch of things to get done. And I was able to power through and get them done, but it just seemed to take a lot of extra willpower since I really didn't feel like doing much of anything. I was able to sneak home around 1:30 and get in a quick hour-long power nap, something that I pretty much never do or feel like I need before waking back up and going and getting the girls from daycare and resuming my day. Now, I gotta say that nap midday helped a ton, and I think fueled me for the second half of the day. Played with the girls for a while, and then a few hours later, around 5 p.m. or so, I had a call with my winner circle clients and seemed to have gotten my second wind. There was a lot of energy on the call, and I felt like my normal self for a short period. After I finally made it home around 6 p.m., 6:15 or so, I weighed in and was already a little over 7 pounds down, sitting in at, I believe it was 195.5. That night, by the time we got the girls down for bed around 8 p.m., I had very little energy and went straight to bed around 8:15 or so and slept through the entire night. Which brings us to day 2 of the dry fast. Now, day 2 started much like day 1 ended, which was with a throbbing headache. Yet again, I slept in until around 7:30 because I didn't want to wake up and go to the gym when I could sleep that time away, especially since I had been training extra hard for the last few months, and I just wanted to take this time to fully let my body heal and recover. Yet again, throughout the day, I took calls and felt pretty lethargic and just didn't really want to do much of anything. I was able to do the bare minimum that I had outlined for that day and take some coaching calls with, a brave face. But I'd say my energy was around 65% of what it normally was. For some reason, which I just chalked up to my body detoxing or something along those lines, I had these stiff aches and pains in some of my muscles and joints throughout my entire body. It wasn't anything drastic, but it was definitely noticeable because I normally don't have anything like that. I went home around 4 p.m. and weighed in on the scale and was surprised I was down to 190.6, which was 5 pounds down from the night before and 13 pounds down from starting 46 hours prior. At this point, I was 46 or 47 hours in, and I was 90% sure I was going to break my dry fast at the 48-hour mark, just an hour away or so. Then something crazy happened. With only a little bit of time before the 48-hour mark, my headache was gone. My energy seemed to come back up to an 85, 90% or so. And I didn't really feel the need to break at all. So I decided to continue on and make it to the 72 hours. So the rest of that night on day 2 was pretty flawless, and I was able to get another night of great sleep. And this time my headache had subsided entirely. Which brings us to day 3 of the dry fast. Now, day 3 started off differently than the prior 2 days because I woke up, I didn't have that headache whatsoever, and I felt pretty normal for the first time. And honestly, the thought of coffee didn't even really appeal to me. Now, I could feel that with only 10 hours left or so, I had this thing pretty much whooped. I had a normal work day for the most part. There were times I found myself just hyper-focused when I was talking to a client or a podcast guest, to the point I wondered if my 1,000-yard stare was freaking them out or not. I wrapped up work and got home around 2:30 p.m. and really thought hard about breaking, but then I remembered a recent coaching call I had with my clients, and we talked about, really going the distance. So I drew a line in the sand and said that I would not break the dry fast until the clock in my kitchen said 5 p.m. Around that time, I went into the bathroom and weighed in one last time to see where I was at, just to see 187.3 on the scale, putting me just under 16 pounds down in only 72 hours. When the clock did hit 5 p.m., I felt like I could easily push my fast until the next morning, but I decided that I'd cut it off right at 72 hours with a shaker bottle full of water and Ultimate electrolytes that I had put in the freezer for a little bit to make into a nice slushy of sorts, so I could sip on it nice and slowly and not overload my system all at once. So that was pretty much my experience with the 72-hour dry fast. The first 47 hours or so were pretty rough, but I was able to power through, and then that last day or so was actually surprisingly easy. While we're on the subject, let's talk about how to break a dry fast. Now, the way you break your dry fast is going to depend on how long you go for. Now, if you're just doing like an 18-hour or 24-hour dry fast, you can pretty much just drink water pretty normally and then start eating a little bit later, like honestly pretty much right away, preferably with healthy foods. But if you start getting into the 36-hour, 48-hour, 72-hour or longer, you're going to want to take things a little bit slower and start by sipping on some water with electrolytes for a few hours and then moving on to some easy to digest food like steamed vegetables or even like a bone broth or something along those lines, just to warm your system back up. Now, if you push your dry fast to a week or so, and yes, that can be done. I've had clients that do it. They're crazy guys. You really need to be diligent and take almost as much time as you took dry fasting to gently warm your system back up by water fasting and loading up on electrolytes. You might want to add some baking soda and definitely have some extra magnesium if you're doing those longer fasts, but I'm going to assume if you're watching this video, that's not the case and you're doing 72 or shorter. Again, this is not medical advice. This is just my experience with my 72-hour dry fast. If you do feel stagnant with what you've been doing and you want to come up with a customized plan for your unique goals, feel free to schedule a call with my team and we'll be able to help you out there. That wraps it up for this video. If you found it helpful and you're planning on doing a dry fast pretty soon and maybe there was a nugget or two that you can take from this, please take a couple seconds and like this video. That goes a long way for me. And if you want to stay up to date on fasting for fat loss, health benefits, longevity. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you can keep up to date with videos. Lastly, if you have any questions or concerns, drop them in the comments and I'll make sure I do my best to get back to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.